Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Chicago Sports Fan. It's your Chicago Sports Fan here, and this is a breakdown of the Bears Week 2 versus the New York Giants. The Bears come away with the win. They start the season off 2-0, tied for first in the uh, NFC North. Um, so it's just a brief stat rundown for the game. Trubisky went 18 for 28, 190 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions with a 78.0 passer rating, and he did get sacked 4 times. Montgomery had 16 rushes for 82 yards, 3 receptions for 45 yards, and a touchdown. And he didn't even play the whole game as he missed part of the game due to an injury. Mooney got a touchdown, and the defense gave up 295 or only 295 yards, 4 sacks, a forced fumble, a fumble recovery, and 1 interception. So those are just the stats I felt like were worth highlighting. And now let's get into the real business. So all in all, in the beginning, the Bears started off aggressive, which I felt was a real improvement from last week. Last week they had kind of a poor offense. They kind of really just had a few passes that were good catches and ended up being touchdowns. But other than that, pretty not so good offense. Anyway, so the Bears' opening drive, it was a touchdown. Uh, yeah, and then their second drive, the Giants' first drive, they ended up fumbling. The Bears recovered, and there was a nice pass thrown right into Miller's arms that would have been a touchdown, but Miller dropped it. I wouldn't blame Trubisky on that one. Miller dropped it, so they had to settle for a field goal. So Trubisky overall, I would say, had a satisfactory game. Excuse me. He had 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions, but I wouldn't necessarily say the interceptions were his fault. One interception was tipped, and it went right into the arms of the defender. Uh, and then the other interception was in Robinson's arms, and the defender snagged it out. You know, uh, the interception's not really Trubisky's fault. Interceptions happen. What are you gonna do about it? So, for the first half, I would say the Bears' offense was really good. Um, Not really good. It was satisfactory to a point where you felt like they could produce. Um, and the Giants' offense, however, couldn't produce anything. They literally scored 0 points, and they had a missed field goal. They looked almost dead. The Bears' defense kept them quiet. The Bears' offense looked alive, and it looked like an average offense, and it gives you hope that they could win close games or games against tougher opponents. Um, However, in the second half, the Bears took the foot off the pedal. Instead of finishing off the Giants, they played very conservatively, and they kind of played not to lose instead of playing to win, which I think was the biggest issue in the Bears offense. I think maybe that had a lot to do with the 2 interceptions. Maybe Nagy felt like they should just slow it down. It could be a lack of confidence in the quarterback. I mean, they're still not fully confident with Trubisky. They're giving him a shot. Each game he gets another shot. And, he's playing just good enough to stay the Bears starter. So that could have been the reason why. But again, you never know. Maybe Matt Nagy just felt like playing more conservatively. I do think it does have something to do with a lack of confidence. Um, if you're up 17-0, you don't give them a chance to come back. You put the game away. The Bears didn't do that. They did let them come back. When all in all, you should keep trying to score. Uh, yeah. So Then you get to the Bears defense, and I think the Bears defense need to step up. I know the stats I read you sounds good, and it is. They only gave up 13 points, which is not a lot in the NFL to give up only 13 points. But believe it or not, the Bears' first two games ended where the offense had the lead, and it was up to the defense to make a good stop. And um, yeah, so the offense had the lead by the final possession, and it was up to the defense. And if you ask me, I would say the Bears' defense actually failed against the Lions in that final possession. The Lions should have scored in the coming away with the win, but they didn't. DeAndre Swift to drop the pass, and the Bears were giving one last shot. The Lions ran the same exact play, and the Bears win. So they actually kind of failed against the Lions in the end. This game they didn't, but again, it came down to the last play of the game, just like it did last week. And you can't be letting that happen. If you're Matt Nagy or Chuck Pagano, you got to realize that that's an issue, and you can't let the game, every single game you play, get down to the last possession. The game was done at halftime. The Giants couldn't produce anything, but then you give them a whole nother half of hope, and you can't produce anything, and now it's a close game again, and you can't let that happen. So, the Bears did have that pick six, that call was reversed. But that was a good call. It was a penalty. It was a pass interference. He did run into the receiver, and then the receiver, the ball ricocheted up into the air, and he caught it. But that was a good call. So you can't look at that all the time. But the Bears, also they had one missed field goal, and I want to kind of talk about this. One missed field goal, oh, big deal. The only missed kick of the season. Well, not really, because, the Bears, they really don't want to make the first mistake that they don't want to make the same mistake that they made in 2018, which was, our kicker, he's not great. He misses a lot of kicks, but we'll be fine. We're 12-4. We're going to be fine. No, you can't. Once you notice you have a field goal kicker problem, and I know every kicker misses one kick, but historically the Bears field goal kickers, I think his name is Santos, he hasn't been really good. So once you notice that you have a kicker problem, get him out and get a new kicker, because the Bears learned the hard way that kickers are just as important as any other position. Because you usually football teams win close games off of field goals, and if you don't have a field goal kicker, you're not going to win those close games. So once they notice they have a field goal kicker problem, they need to cut their kicker, sign someone else, because you can't let that happen how it happened back in 2018. Couple final notes. The Bears' running game still looks good. It looks very promising. Still looks better than it was last season. Montgomery steps up. He gets it done. And in the fourth quarter, they couldn't get anything done. Montgomery had a ton of rushes that went 7+ yards. Trubisky even had a QB sneak, I think, that went 10 yards or something. So, that's all really, I had to say about that, though, the running. But it is, the running game looks good. The running game is running that you want a good team to have, and that is what the Bears have. The passing is still questionable. You have your ups and downs, your inconsistencies. Some passes look great, some not really. But it is what it is. They're 2-0. A win is a win. So the passing, like I said, has some inconsistencies. Some passes are good, some aren't. But the good ones look good, and they make the offense look like a above average offense. But the bad ones make the Bears offense look like a not so good offense. And you want the good passes that that make you look like a good offense that will get you into the playoffs and make you like a real playoff contender. You want to be like the 2018 Bears. You want to look like the 2018 Bears and not the 2019 Bears. And that is the difference, that good passes will get them and bad passes will get them. So in the end, in conclusion, the Bears played 2 games against 2 teams that are beatable, and they beat both those teams, and now they're 2-0, and they should be 2-0. I mean, as a Bears fan, I looked at that schedule and I said, Lions and Giants, 2-0. But it is still a sloppy 2-0. They were both sloppy 2-0s. Both games literally came down to the last play of the game. You could easily argue that they could be 0-2. But good teams win close games, bad teams lose close games. The Bears won both of their close games. But there is room for improvement, which also means there is hope. You saw off the season 2-0. The Bears have hope. They didn't play perfect games, but they still won, and they still need to improve. So you could, like I said, with a good offense, with good passing, they could win 10, 11 games. With a bad offense, with bad passing, they could win 7, 8, 9 games. And that's what separates a good team from a bad team. So that's it, guys. Thank you all so much for listening. And I'll see you guys in the next video. So goodbye.